Well, the well I'm at has finished drilling. As some of you saw, I posted a video yesterday of a flare. There's actually been a flare that's about 5 or 6 times that size today, and there's probably going to be one in about double that size in a couple hours here. I don't have a lot of work, but you'd be surprised how much paperwork there ends up being on a job like this towards the end. Been out here for 2 months. Really looking forward to get back to Michigan and get home. But when I'm not working and when I'm not totally exhausted, I still think about libertarianism. And about a week ago, I got really proud of myself because I thought of a argument for market defense, or rather against state defense, or kind of both. And I was really proud of myself because I'd never heard it before, and I was like, wow, I'm so smart. And then the next day, I was reading my latest Rothbard book, which is just a collection of many of his essays, and he thought of it before me. Let's just say that. I was disappointed. But the point that he made, and that I thought, I guess I can't say I thought of it, but like that I realized myself, was that similar to what is known as a fallacy is involved. I think my computer is overheating and not working properly. 1 second. Who's that idiot? Is that the tool pusher? Maybe we should send this to Zach.
It's getting later.
It's, sure we shouldn't? That'd be kind of cool.
The pumps on? How much gas was
They
there?
got. Yeah, my computer wasn't overheating. It just looked like it was because my screen was freezing. Anyway, what I was thinking about, I forget why exactly, but I was thinking about the diamond water paradox, or sometimes called the gold water paradox, which was a kind of a paradox that the neoclassical economists wrestled with, especially Adam Smith. And what they had difficulty with is looking at something like diamonds and saying these are very expensive, and then looking at something like water and saying, well, water is almost free, and yet water is absolutely vital to live, and diamonds are not. So what's the problem here? And of course, to attempt to solve this, the labor theory of value was formulated by Smith, although I think others before him had kind of done it as well. Idea being, well, gold is more expensive or diamonds are more expensive because there's a lot of labor involved in digging them out. And of course, there's, what's wrong with the labor theory of value is a whole other video, but Carl Menger, I believe, in the 1870s at least, came up with the correct answer, and he says, well, the price of any good is based on marginal units. Nobody ever is faced with the situation of choosing all the water in the world versus all the gold in the world. They're faced with the situation of a marginal unit of water and a marginal unit of gold. And since water is so much more plentiful, it tends to be a great deal cheaper. Although if you're in a situation where you're dying of thirst and there's very little water, then its value increases because its marginal unit's worth more. And as I was thinking about it, I thought, well, this applies to basically everything, including defense services. When people imagine defense, they kind of think of this massive institutional shield, basically, that covers an entire continent, basically, in the case of the United States. What they fail to realize is even with state provided defense, which it's not a service and it's not actually defense. We should never forget that, because it's to serve the state, and if it just it's extra good for you if it happens to coincide with defending you, but that's not the purpose of it. Anyway, even the state purchases and pays for defense in marginal units, and they deploy this shield in marginal units. It comes down to individual soldiers, individual pieces of equipment, individual systems. There is no giant monolith without which there is nothing that you must construct. Just as food is not I mean, people will use the term food, but most people realize that there isn't actually a single thing called food. When you go to the store, you're going to be purchasing either potatoes or spaghetti or lettuce or pop or ramen or soybeans, or going to a fast food restaurant or a sushi bar. It's never. Just heard something. Anyway, it's never just generic food that you have to pay enough to, create an entire continental food producing apparatus. And the same is true with defense. What you need for defense is going to vary from person to person, from territory to territory, and even now the state, were it to actually even attempt to defend you, would do it in marginal units. They'd never say, okay, let's arrange our entire apparatus to protect you. No, if they did anything, they'd assign a unit, which they wouldn't, because there's not enough of them. But I think it's just it makes sense for simplicity to use terms like defense and food, but we should always realize that we're using terms for communicative convenience, and we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that they're not perfect representations of reality. When I talk of if I live on an island and you live in the desert, and we talk of defense, we probably don't mean the exact same thing. We probably don't need the same thing or want the same thing. And though we might both say defense, the marginal units, the actual things that we'll need, will differ, and neither of us is required in the providing for our own defense to fund something that provides for someone else's who probably needs a different type of thing anyway. So this is not specific to defense. This is specific to everything, really. And I mean, how many people say, "Oh, we can't"? I mean, people who say you need a state for defense, they might as well say, "Well, you have to have a state to provide food, because, no one how are you going to? You could look. We could aggregate all food production in the United States, all the farms, all the transportation hubs, all the processing centers, all the retailers, all of the wholesalers, everything, down to the pizza delivery boy and the guy who takes your plates off at the fancy restaurant, all the way to the farmer and the fisherman. And if you just aggregated that all together, it would seem like an impossibly complex and enormously expensive, probably more expensive than the military. I mean, we're talking about, I don't know, millions and millions of acres of cultivated land, millions and millions of people involved in the production, sale, transport of these goods, and the refining and the development in them. And if we just say, oh, this so much, how could, and you come up we come up with a number that it costs $2 trillion a year, and say, oh no, one person could never pay for. Well, yeah, one person never could, but you're not faced with that. You're buying apples or bananas or whatever, shrimp, etouffee, and the market creates this, and it wasn't designed that way, and it doesn't need to be designed. And if someone tried to design it, it would suck. And that's why military defense sucks. Why it can never really stop anything. So, I don't know. That's what I was thinking.